How would you like a suspenseful cop mystery about a killer so terrifying he can only be described as the modern-day Jack the Ripper? Get your hands on Crime Scene Confidential, the slasher, available on Amazon Kindle for only 99 cents. It's just the beginning of a twist and turn-filled novella series following Stevens through the world of dark crime. Get your copy today and find out who done it.
Yeah, I shook my head and said I really got to edit that video when I came up because I totally forgot about that little Warner Brother thing at the beginning. So that's going to be fixed. All right. I welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another wonderful episode of Paranormal. And we do have with us a very wonderful and special guest. Now, you guys might not know her just by seeing her, but let me tell you who this is. This is Stephanie Osborn, and she's a remarkable individual with a unique background that seamlessly blends the worlds of science and creativity. She's a retired rocket scientist. She has transitioned her expertise into the realm of writing, where she crafts captivating stories that intertwine science fiction and mystery while infusing a powerful element of action and suspense. Now, with a masterful touch, Stephanie manages to weave intricate plots that engage the mind and heart, and while adding a touch of romance to some of her narratives. Through her writing, she takes readers on thrilling journeys like that explore both the uncharted territories of the cosmos and the depths of human emotion. And tonight's conversation promises to be a fascinating exploration of the intersections between science, imagination — I really should have little things popping up — and storytelling. So, welcome, Miss Stephanie. It's a pleasure. Well, let me rephrase it. It's a pleasure seeing you. We've had you before, but now we get to see you today.
Nice to be here, EW. I'm glad to be here.
Yes, thank you. And I told you, a different intro for a change, right?
Oh, yeah. I love it.
So, and it's Stephanie's been our go-to person when we've had real science questions. We've talked. Well, I've hit you up in the past over bootstrap theories, even time travel, and a lot of other scientific stuff that we've actually talked about here on the show to confirm or deny, whichever way we want to go. Now, notice, though, we don't ask Stephanie questions about UFOs or anything because, well, I don't want to disrespect such a smart, intelligent person with such questions.
Well, I'm a skeptic by training. That doesn't mean that I haven't had my own little experiences.
Well, I figured you might have, but I know there's certain things, especially working with such programs as NASA. When I lived in California, my dad was at Edwards Air Force Base, which is a joint base with NASA. And there's a lot of things I saw that I still can't talk about. So I know what it's like. I mean, so I know there's certain things that you're limited to.
Well, I mean, nothing actually happened on any of the missions that I worked. When I say I've had certain experiences, these have all been outside of the realm of my scientific career, oddly enough. So, go figure. But no, I've never, excuse me, I have had trouble with allergies all this year, and it's just been pouring down rain into the last few days. And mold is my worst allergy, so I will occasionally croak.
You can
Um,
you can come to Texas. I promise. There's no mold.
no, that's true.
Don't do it. Don't do it.
Oh, I've been in Texas before. I used to know my way around southern part of Houston really well, and
Yes.
I've been to San Antonio a number of times.
Yeah.
So
And I
so
can
yeah,
testify to the Houston stuff because I know that's that's NASA, the
hey
NASA
Joe.
base.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm out of Huntsville, Alabama, and I've traveled back and forth to Houston many times.
Right.
So yeah, I know Texas. I've driven back and forth from San Antonio to Houston. Um,
It's not a long drive. It's only 3 hours.
yeah, so
If you don't get caught speeding, it could be faster.
yeah,
Yeah. Just let the top down, let your hair blow. Yeah.
used to
Oh.
train astronauts. I'm not going to say anything about this about my velocities.
Uh huh. Well, I
There's a
actually,
reason I have a radar in my car.
yeah, right. I actually came across some news, breaking news from this morning that I thought I would want to share with you guys. Um, Something that many people might not understand or have a different opinion about. So, just so you can see, as of today, this particular creature right here, if you can see on there, was captured by camera by the homeowner. This is in their backyard. Now, I'm going to scroll it up a little bit more here in a moment to show you the second picture because she took two pictures. But she put this picture out there asking people, what is this thing? Now, in this image, I kind of get the idea of this looks like a dog with mange. That's my thought. But going through the story, they did have. Oh, where's the second picture? Ah, for real? Okay. All right. We're going to have to change that up a second. Bear with me. I could have sworn there was two pictures in there. But what we're going to do is we're going to bring up the YouTube video of it and we'll share that so you can actually see the news clipping of this. This is on today's news here in San Antonio. And what's intriguing about the whole thing is that it's even baffled some of the, hey, I like how that worked. Woo! Oh, sorry. It's even baffled some of the local individuals that are zoologists or something. So here's the headline.
And a strange sighting is baffling Hill Country Village residents tonight. This creature was caught on camera at a Northside neighborhood. Property owner took to social media asking, "What is it?" The post was blown up as many give it a wild guess. 10 reporter here to the photos are even stumping experts.
What do you think this animal is? No one quite knows what to make of it.
Large animal, kind of looks like a wolf, but not like a neighborhood dog.
I would say some kind of cat, like a bobcat, mountain lion.
Looks like some kind of like mangy coyote.
Last night, a bizarre creature made a visit to Tina Kaling's backyard.
I was inside and I looked out into the yard and I looked right here and I saw this animal. I thought, wow, what is that?
So she snapped a picture.
And I saw him walking around this tree. And
Whatever it is, it has a sweet tooth.
these are the fruits and they drop on the ground.
Tina was able to get just one more photo before the animal disappeared into a shroud of mystery. She turned to her neighbors for help.
It's gotten a lot of posts on Nextdoor.
In 24 hours, more than 100 people weighed in.
Chupacabra. Some people think it's like a cross between a coyote and a dog.
According to local legend, an old mountain lion roams Hill Country Village, but no one has been able to get a picture of it, according to city officials. The city manager told us they are on the case, trying to get to the bottom of this somewhat mangy resident.
I would love for someone to help me identify, but I just don't have great photos.
The city of Hill Country Village reached out to the Texas game wardens, and so did we. We are all waiting to hear back. But I also took those photos to the San Antonio Zoo. The director of mammals told us it looks like either a coyote or a dog, and 2 veterinarians also at the zoo said it appears to be a dog with skin issues. If you would like to get a closer look at those photos, head over to kens5.com. For now, reporting live, Hannah Tito, Kens 5.
Oh.
All right, so there you go. That is the wonderful, wow.
Yeah, infinity and beyond.
Yeah. So that is the wonderful article that they're talking about. Joe says mangy coy dog. Okay.
I'm inclined to agree with him. Coyote, coy dog with mange. It's not a cat.
I could not see the mountain lion in there. I don't know if you guys.
It's not a cat. There's the markings are not right for one thing.
Right.
And the shape of the head, the shape of the ears, the shape of the tail.
I think Annie froze. It scared her.
Oh
No, it didn't.
She just.
I raised 3 kids. Nothing scares me. It looks like a canine type thing, whatever it is. So.
Well, if you looked at the video of the mountain lion, you could see the bigger, thick back legs.
Yeah.
That's what I kept looking to when I looked at the pictures of this thing. It's like there's no way that is a mountain lion because those legs are thin on the pictures.
Yeah, those paws are different.
Yeah,
the tail is different. You will almost always see a mountain lion, and this is going to sound a little weird, but the tip of the tail usually it curls up.
Well,
and that one didn't. Yeah, and that one was, and a bobcat doesn't have a tail that long.
Right.
So it's not a bobcat. It's not a cougar.
Yeah,
So,
and I know the cat's tails curl because my boy here is. Anytime he goes around, he's kind of got that monkey tail, that little. You're waiting for it to grab something.
You more than half expect him to be prehensile.
Yeah,
I have a cat too, and he'll probably show up at some point tonight.
Now, I couldn't hear it very well, but did she say it was eating the blueberries?
Well, it was eating these fruits from this tree. Now, I'm not familiar with that tree, so I'm not sure what fruits that they're talking about.
It looked like a blueberry, yeah.
Well, what I'm saying is, okay, if that thing was like munching on them, maybe he got saliva on it. Take it, get a DNA.
Well, good thing to say there, exactly. Because, we're talking... If it's enough to disturb people, then sure, why not?
That's another call though. Because dogs are omnivores. Cats are not. They only eat plants when they're sick. And supposedly cats do not have the sweet taste. They don't have that ability to taste.
Yeah, cats can't taste sweet.
Now, right. I don't know. I would assume that would hold true for Felidae, for all cats, but big and small. But I don't know for sure. But it would surprise me if that was a cougar.
It's definitely something weird. That's all I can say.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I have to do this one. According to scientists, there is a comet coming to the Earth in the shape of, yes, you see that correctly, the Millennium Falcon. Now, I don't know if it's going to go faster than a parsec and pass us, but hey.
Is it going ludicrous speed or something?
This is a real article for you guys if you don't know that. So... let me back it up here. Let me shrink it down now so you can see. Actual headline, which came out back in July, is that a Millennium Falcon-shaped comet heading towards Earth is so bright you'll be able to see it with your naked eyes, according to astronomers. Now, what they're saying is that it's going to be part of a meteor shower. Now, I did take or enlarge their picture and just thought I would go through parts of this, but it's still considered a mystery because of the shape of the comet. But Stephanie, isn't that partially because comets have that trail of dust behind them, so it obscures their way they look?
There's that, and there's also the fact that by the looks of things, you've got some sort of a shadow, and that's all that is. But
Yeah.
um,
But I had to
now
have some fun with that.
a comet is not part of a meteor shower. A comet typically lays down the debris that becomes a meteor shower.
Right.
So I would love to know if they think that this is the source of an existing meteor shower or if this is going to lay down a new one. Because the only way it can be a meteor shower is if the trail crosses Earth.
Okay, the comet will make its closest approach to the sun next year, just weeks after a solar eclipse. Go away. That means sky gazers could be in for a chance to see the event before. Okay, well, once in a lifetime shape.
That actually
Okay,
could be
here we
pretty
go.
cool.
There's the comet's name, Comet 12P or Pons Brooks.
No, that's all one name. 12P.
Oh, that's all. Oh my God,
Yes.
for real? How do you guys name these things?
There is an organization, an international organization that has a committee that sits down. They have a committee for each type of interstellar object, and they sit down and they come up with the names. But actually, the names for comets, the Pons Brooks, that means that either there was a guy named Pons Brooks, or there were two guys, one named Pons and one named Brooks, who discovered it. The 12P references when it was discovered and the fact that it's a comet.
Okay. And of course, this
It
is
means it's a
also
period.
stating,
The P means periodic.
right. And this is also stating that we should see this around April 8th of 2024 when that particular solar eclipse comes around. I guess
And that will be really cool if it's close, if it's that close and it actually is a naked eye visible object, because that'll be really, really cool to look at, to see the
especially
solar
if it is
eclipse
that
and
shape. Yeah.
So
Well, since we are kind of on the meteors thing, I will throw this in real quick because it got my attention. Let me see, where'd you go? There it is, the 2023 Perseid meteor shower. Yeah. So let me pull that up for people to see as well.
We just came through the maximum for the shower.
So we kind of already missed that.
Yeah, but they go on for a couple of weeks either side of the maximum.
Yeah, see, I wasn't paying attention to dates, and I still had it in there. So there's
No, it's fine. People can still go out and see meteors from it.
Well, now, I have actually seen these amazing meteor showers here in Texas. That, I mean, you just walk, you get out where you got to leave the city. That's number one, because get that city light, it just messes everything up. But you get out to a certain distance and you can see these things shooting across the sky. It's the most amazing sight. It's beautiful. It's just fun.
I have had the great privilege of being in a dark sky site the year after the parent comet came through for this particular meteor shower. And so there was a fresh layer of debris that we were running into. And that was absolutely awesome because they were frequent, they were bright. Some of them were bright enough. I was trying to keep a running notation of how many I had seen, and I could read my paper by some of them. They were that bright. And then it clouded up partway through the night, and you could still see them through the cloud cover.
Wow.
So
See, those are pretty cool showers.
Yeah. Now, there tends to be a lot of fear about, oh, here comes a meteor shower. We're going to have one hit the Earth. No, they're not that big. We're talking dust particles. The really brightest ones might be a small pebble.
Right.
And they are just skirting through the outer atmosphere, and most of them actually burn up before they can make it through. So,
all right.
But they're not coming down. They're coming at an angle through.
Right. Right. So let's get into the heart of the conversation tonight, where we're going to shine some light. Ooh, might be a bad joke. I don't know. But we're going to shine some light on the subject. For those who don't know, that is a picture of the sun.
Of part of the sun.
Part of the sun,
and
yes.
If I'm correct, that's probably Mercury transiting across.
I think. I can't read it from that side. Let's see. Venus. That's Venus.
Okay.
Yeah. So the reason I really kind of wanted to bring you on is some major things are happening with the sun as of late. Scientists are talking about it. Some of them we might have experienced already and people just don't realize it. But there is a big event coming up very soon that they're talking that the sun is going to produce a large wave that will put us out of, well, communication for a short time.
Okay.
I can tell by this big sigh, she's already ready to say, well, that's a bunch of crap. No.
Well, that's a bunch of crap. No. All right. Let me give you a little bit of background about myself and my studies so that you'll know that I know what I'm talking about here. My graduate work was in variable stars, specifically spotted variable stars, meaning stars that have sunspots on them.
Right.
And typically they were really, really large. And as the star rotated, the light brightened and dimmed, depending on whether there was a sunspot on the side facing us or not. Many variable star astronomers consider the sun to be at least borderline variable for this very reason, because of the sunspots. And we know that there is a variation due to the 11-year sunspot cycle, which is actually a 22-year sunspot cycle, because sunspots are magnetic. You can think of them as snarls in the magnetic fields. Okay. If you've got magnetic field lines, think of them like fishing line, and you get a snarl in it. Okay. And the effects that creates in the plasma around it, once it reaches, it starts down deep in the sun and gradually works its way up to the photosphere. The photosphere is what we consider the surface of the sun. And those snarls, they have many effects, and they produce sunspots, they produce flares, they produce coronal mass ejections. Yeah, okay, the bright thing is a flare. The streamer of stuff is called a prominence. Under the right circumstances, the energy from the flare can accelerate the plasma in the streamer, in the prominence, out away from the sun entirely. That's called a coronal mass ejection, or CME.
Damn, Joe, really? I'm sorry. He got me off guard with that one.
Yeah, he's right though. I'm getting educational. So, back in the 1800s, there was something called the Carrington event, or the Carrington super flare. It's a little more complicated than this, but we have categories of flares depending on the amount of energy in them. Currently, the top level is an X-class flare. It is believed that the Carrington Super Flare was around about an X100.
Okay.
Now, normally, they started off alphabetical with the things, and then they, like as usual in astronomy, they wound up jumbling them because they realized they had them out of order. Typically, you move from one category of flare to the next when it reaches 10.
Okay.
Okay, so it's a logarithmic scale. So the Carrington Super Flare actually should have been there were no more categories above X, but it should have been a couple categories above X. The resulting there had been the given place on the sun had been producing flares and coronal mass ejections for days. This particular one was the strongest of the lot, but because one of these things, I wish I could point. Wish you could see me pointing to the streamer there. Because one of these things had already cleared out the.
You tell me if I'm in the right spot.
Yes, you are.
Okay.
Because one of those had already cleared out what's called the interplanetary medium, the very fine distributed gas between the planets and the sun. It meant that when the super flare occurred and it fired out a CME, or coronal mass ejection, it was almost complete vacuum between Earth and the sun. So there was nothing to slow it down. Normally, one of these things is 93 million miles between Earth and the sun. Normally, it takes anywhere from a day and a half to 3 days for one of these things to reach us.
Wow.
This one reached us in 17 hours.
Out of quick curiosity before you continue, is this an actual image of the sun?
Yes.
Okay. I had to ask because, I'm providing pictures, but,
right.
I feel stupid if I'm just showing a rendering.
You're not showing a rendering. This is an actual image of the sun. Now, it's probably not in visible light. It's probably in near infrared.
Yeah.
But yes.
Yeah, I think I remember pulling this one off of an infrared image.
Yes. So it's legit. But think about something like this slamming into the Earth, hitting the magnetic field, because it's plasma, it's charged particles. Okay. It gets caught in the magnetic field and it starts spiraling around from one pole to the other. And the more energetic it is, the further away from the pole it can get in these arcs. Okay. So here's a weak one. And between my fingers and my thumbs is the axis of the Earth. Okay, the magnetic axis.
Right. So you get that little circle.
Right. So that, and then when it impinges on the atmosphere, it produces an aurora. For the exact same reason that neon lights glow. All right, it's exciting the gases in the atmosphere and making them light up. Now, the more energetic the particles are, the further away from the poles they can get when they impinge the atmosphere.
Interesting.
The super flare, the Carrington super flare, displayed auroras literally from pole to pole. And there were people in major cities that were using the lights of the aurora to read newspapers at midnight.
Yeah, those things are beautiful. I've never seen them in person, but I've seen tons of video and pictures, and I would just love to see one in person.
Likewise, I'm just never in the right place at the right time. I actually have seen them. I actually, on a couple of occasions, have seen them in Tennessee and Alabama. They don't produce the curtains like they do further north, but they produce the colors.
What about those Baltimore people? Do they get to see it? Yes, I said it with the T. I'm sorry. Baltimore.
We don't get to see a lot of stuff.
No,
Usually
I'm in
cloudy.
Alabama,
Every
so
time
if I can
something
see them
comes
in Alabama, they can see them in Baltimore, but it's very rare, and you got
Yeah.
to know what you're looking at.
Well, wasn't
Um,
it with last year? I think they said that it actually had stretched down far enough to be seen to Tennessee. Was that correct? Was that last year, or
yeah,
was it the year before?
in all honesty, um, I lost my husband in December of 2021, and I don't remember much of last year. I'm sorry, I just
No
don't.
worries, no worries.
Um,
Yeah. Well,
um,
here's something that I have to ask because this is the science right now that's being said. Now, according to a group of international researchers, they discovered the highest energy light ever observed from the sun. And of course, they published a paper on this last week in the Journal of Physical Review Letters. And the scientists found that the star, of course, the sun, had emitted surprisingly bright gamma rays that had an energy level about 1 trillion electron volts or 1 tera electron volt, a TeV. Now, gamma rays are wavelengths of light that are known to carry the most energy of any other wavelengths in the electromagnetic spectrum. So, as
correct.
you were mentioning that, we could, it helps people understand the gamma rays. But what does this highest energy of light mean for us here on Earth?
Um, Actually, surprisingly little,
Cool.
because gamma rays at that energy. Okay, it's it's a photon with an energy of a TeV. Um, a gamma ray has energies past X-ray. Okay, so you've got
Right.
visible light, and then as you increase the energies on the blue side of the spectrum, or shorten the frequency, as the case may be, you get ultraviolet, X-ray, and then finally gamma ray. Okay. Now, X-rays, we already know they don't interact with a whole lot, right? Because
Right.
that's they interact with enough that if you get a good dose of X-rays, you're in trouble. Gamma rays interact with even less. That said, if you get enough to interact with you, you are in even worse trouble, because
Hmm.
gamma rays are produced, for instance, in nuclear bombs, not neutron bombs, but in nuclear bombs, particularly in hydrogen bombs, because that's fusion, just like is going on inside the sun.
Right.
So yes, enough gamma radiation, and you will not be healthy, and you will not be healthy for very long.
Yeah. And
But in
which would mean
general,
that, you know, this is why we probably don't send people close enough to test that.
one of the reasons, yes, that is in fact one of the concerns behind sending people to other planets, is that the spacecraft will have to be shielded.
Right.
There was uh, the Apollo astronauts took radiation from the sun,
Really?
because to get to the moon they had to leave the concentrated magnetic field around the Earth. They were outside the Van Allen belts, so they were exposed to more radiation than astronauts in orbit, low Earth orbit.
So what about the space shuttle astronauts or the ISS astronauts?
They're in low Earth orbit.
Okay. I didn't
That
know that.
that said, there's still enough radiation going there that after about 3 to 5 months, they send up film, photographic film, in metal canisters. And after about 3 to 5 months, the film is so badly fogged it has to be disposed.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
and so that's inside a metal can, inside a metal can, inside containers.
Wow.
Okay. So you've
'Cause
got
they
the
did
metal
do a
can.
lot to protect that.
You've got the metal can of the ISS, the metal can of the storage canister, and then the containers of film inside.
Interesting.
So you've got a double dosimeter effect.
Well, here's the big news that also is coming out, which you can see where I got part of that picture from. But a once in a century solar storm could fry power grids and knock out satellites.
That would be a Carrington event, and I've studied this in some detail. This is a clickbait headline. Okay.
Woohoo! Thank God.
Um, that said, it's possible. Uh, that little animation.
I know. I had to take him off. He was getting to me.
So when the Carrington event occurred, auroras were not the only thing that happened. They also had, at that point in time, they had the telegraph. That was their major means of long distance communication. Well, the induced current in the telegraph wires was so great that it started burning out the batteries that the telegraphers were using. So they actually had to disconnect the batteries to save the batteries. And there was still enough induced current in the lines that they could continue sending messages.
Wow.
There are reports that some of the telegraph poles burned down. And there are news reports that a few telegraph offices burned down.
I'll be doggone.
There were induced currents in anything that ran for long distances, including fence lines. Now we have a much more extensive, much more complicated grid. We also have things that run for long distances like rail lines and pipelines and things of this nature. The Alaskan pipeline has required more maintenance than anybody ever figured on because the induced currents, it's up there where it gets auroras on a regular basis.
Right.
Currents induced in the piping have been sufficient to rust it at an accelerated rate. So they have to go up there periodically and replace out stretches of pipe. They have to re-weld stuff. They have to clean up spills from where it leaked. So you've got all this stuff going on. Now, extend that to railroad rails, to power grids, to fence lines, to all of the various and sundry pipelines we've got. And then realize that a lot of those pipelines carry things like petroleum and oil distillates and natural gas. And so there are some issues there. And transformers are particularly susceptible. And currently, transformers are handmade one at a time. That's why there is a backlog on replacing out transformers. That's why when you have a substation that gets struck by lightning, it may take a few days for them to get everything back up and running because they have to go find a new transformer. Now, many of the various and sundry power grids, and you've got TVA here where I am, and you've got Con Ed up in the Northeast and stuff like that. TVA is one of the few that has been preparing for such for literally a couple decades now. They have stored up enough to keep them going through a super flare, or past
Wow.
a super flare, I should say.
Okay.
In the last 10 years or so, some of the others have begun waking up. There's been a national effort to begin prepping for something like this to happen. Now, where this gets even more interesting is um, some of the research that many people don't realize that there are higher order solar cycles than just the 11-year cycle. I mentioned the 22-year cycle. That's because uh, sunspots are magnetic. So on the first 11-year cycle, you've got north. On the second 11-year cycle, you've got north.
South.
No,
Oh, wait.
north. It flips.
Okay.
And then on the third 11-year cycle, it flips back to north again. So it takes a full 22 years to get it back to its original orientation. So that's why most astronomers refer to it as the 22-year cycle.
Gotcha.
But there's evidence of longer period cycles, and so you wind up with extended minima throughout recorded history. And so you have the Dalton minimum, you have the Maunder minimum, you have the Wolf minimum, and things like this. There have been various attempts made to try to figure this out. Of those attempts, currently, in my humble opinion, the best one has been done by, oh shoot, I can't remember her name. Hang on. And I've
Well, while you're thinking of that,
okay.
I came across another event. See, you happen to mention the 11 years, which
Mhm.
is so interesting because apparently this event that I'm about to tell you only happens once every 11 years, at least according to the article. I have to say that much.
Let me get the name out first before I forget it again. Valentina Zarkova. Valentina Zarkova is the researcher. Okay, go ahead.
All right. So she's going to know as second she sees this. What are we looking at?
So, annular solar eclipse.
Yes. Specifically called the Ring of Fire.
Yes.
Which will happen in October 13th, for those who don't know. And there is ways to actually watch this particular solar eclipse. If you are going to be in the area that you're going to be able to see this, I strongly suggest, and if you want to, I strongly suggest you find out the safe ways of doing this, because I've looked at a solar eclipse a long time ago and almost went blind doing that. Won't do that again.
There are a number of ways you can do it, and we can talk about that later on if you want to, because there's also another major total eclipse, not an annular one, but a full total eclipse coming up next year, like we talked about earlier in April, that's going to cut across the country. And I have seen now one annular and one full total, and I plan on being on the line of totality for that one also. And it's awesome. It's spectacular. It's goosebump inducing. My husband who was alive and went with me for the last one said I was jumping up and down the whole way, and I got bad knees. I didn't even know I was jumping up and down. I was wondering the next day why my knees hurt. So well, you were jumping up and down on them during all of totality. So yeah.
Well, I think I would just be as thrilled as you to see this. So this is what's going to be interesting. It's going to start October 13th, this particular Ring of Fire that we just mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
And it is an annular solar eclipse. Now, what's the difference between this one, which is supposedly the first time in 11 years crossing the United States, and a typical solar eclipse?
Okay. The difference is everybody knows that a solar eclipse is produced when the moon cuts in front of the sun relative to Earth.
Right.
Well, the moon has an elliptical orbit. It doesn't have a circular orbit. If it had a circular orbit, then the eclipses would be the exact same every time, but it doesn't. So sometimes it's a little further out, sometimes it's a little closer. So when it's a little further out, the apparent diameter of the moon is not quite big enough to cover the entire sun. So when the centers of the circles are aligned, there's still a ring of sun that the moon isn't covering up because the moon is too far away. Okay?
Gotcha.
But if the moon is at an average distance or slightly closer, then it will cover up the at least the entire sun, sometimes a little bit more. And
And
you will get a full total eclipse.
And a full total eclipse, if I recall right, correct me if I'm wrong, the one that's supposed to happen next year will actually darken parts of the United States, if I remember right.
Yes. The what's called the line of totality, which is the projected shadow on the Earth's surface, cuts right across the central United States. The last one we had a few years back started off in the northwest and cut diagonally across and exited onto the ocean in the southeast.
So, Amy, I think this next one is going to cover you.
No, it doesn't cover me in Huntsville, but I have friends that live up in the Louisville area, and the line of totality is a bit west of Louisville, and I'm going to go up there. But this one is more, it's more of a sharply north as opposed to a straight diagonal.
Right.
And that's strictly owing as to well the moon's orbit is not perfectly flat either, so it angles a little bit.
Right. I'm
relative to
sorry.
the equator.
I just got excited.
Oh no,
'Cause
that's fine.
to
It's
view,
gonna be cool.
oh, it's going to be even more awesome. The Ring of Fire one. To view the eclipse, stargazers must be in the 125-mile path of annularity. If you are not on the path, which stretches, ready,
Yeah.
Annie's been saying, yeah, don't listen to him. Okay, now, which stretches from Oregon to Texas, you'll see a partial eclipse. The closer you are to the center of the path, the longer the Ring of Fire will last.
I am not going to try to go look that up because my internet has been a little flaky and I don't want to lock up. But
Sure,
yeah.
sure.
Mhm.
But
So
I actually got that straight from the article itself. So,
no,
but
that's fine. I just want to see
a
if you,
smile because it's a good reason to be in Texas.
Yep.
Oh,
Well, I mean, depending on where in Texas, you don't have very far to drive to get on the line of annularity is the equivalent of the line of totality.
right,
So
right.
yeah.
But I do need to look it up, and it would take me a little while to do that. To find the actual information towards all the line of totality, and the one that I would use
Do it.
well, the one that I want to look up is next year's, because if I recall right, the total eclipse, when I last saw it, it's supposed to darken areas from like the northeast, and if I saw right,
Mhm.
Baltimore area was part of that area. That's
I
gonna
hope
get
so. We keep getting skunked every way.
Well, you and Greg up in Pennsylvania are gonna have your.
I'm
Really? Yeah, no, I did not get hired by the Texas Tourist Board. But if they want to hire me to do some, promote more, sure, bring it on.
But yeah, I'm going to drive from Alabama up to Louisville, Kentucky, and then from there we'll probably have to go a little bit northwest from there, which means I don't know if it'll be up into. I don't know where we'll wind up, but so
Right.
I'm willing to cross several states in order to go look at this thing.
Oh heck
So-
yeah, I would too. I mean, this is something,
And I've
that's
seen 'em before.
totally worth the trip.
And I've seen them before, and I'm going to do it again.
Why not? I mean, that
well-
just tells people how awesome they are.
realize that there are going to be some cool events happening around you, some cool effects. Okay. Um, the first one that I went to, I was in graduate school. It was summer. Me and one other astronomy graduate student piled into his car with some telescopes, and the line of annularity ran through Atlanta, Georgia.
Wow.
And so we drove down. We got permission in advance, and we drove down to. I am forgetting right now which university it was. We set up on the university campus with telescopes, and the science students, the professors were actually letting the students out to come visit us and look and watch the progression. And first contact, which is when you first see the first bite taken out as they start to overlap, actually occurred while we were on the road down there from
Oh,
Nashville. So I'm hanging out. I'm literally sitting in the window of the car, looking with a filter, going, "Yeah, we got first contact."
oh,
And
that would be awesome.
going down the interstate, no less. I'm just okay. Uh,
Well,
so
I would be wrong for not doing this, Stephanie, but I do have to mention to everyone, don't forget to go to Miss Stephanie's website.
please
So
do.
that is really simple. It's stephanie-osborn.com. And you can check out a lot of information from her. Are you still doing
Scroll
your
down and let
updates?
them. Hmm?
Are you still doing your updates on, where you were given the information about the sun and all that?
No, I had to kind of quit doing that because that was taking up a couple of days a week that I should have been writing.
Gotcha.
So when
So,
things,
folks, if you haven't noticed, yes, she is an author. I mean, we mentioned that, and I've watched this Division 1 series grow. It's really growing, as well as another series that is we've had the commercial air quite a few times, and I'm not. See, there we go. There they are, the Sherlock Holmes series. And this is unique because, Miss Stephanie, you've had the opportunity to actually write some really cool Sherlock stuff, including this first one, which is The Mummy's Curse.
yes. What the way this started out was I I have been a Sherlock Holmes fan since I was a kid. And so I got my hands on an anthology that was Sherlock Holmes science fiction, basically. It was science fiction style mysteries that he and Watson would solve. And I thought, oh, that I can do this. I can write this. And I thought, oh, that would be fun. Now, and then it hit me, wouldn't it be even cooler if I could use modern day science?
Hmm.
So I started brainstorming how I could do that, and I decided to use, and this is where it gets really complicated. I got into something called M theory, which is like extreme cutting edge physics and cosmology combined. But I used it to postulate an alternate reality, and I yanked a Sherlock Holmes from that alternate reality's Victorian era and plunked him down into modern day Colorado Springs. And they can't send him back because in his version of events, he was expected to die at the Reichenbach Falls
Right.
along with Moriarty. And so he winds up having to stay and figure out how to be a modern detective. It is not your father's Sherlock Holmes stories. So if you have objections to a non-Victorian Holmes, because that's what he has to become, even though he still has a lot of the Victorian sensibilities. if you have a problem with a Holmes that is not always in London, don't buy my book. Don't buy the series because you won't like them.
Well,
Because I take him all over creation.
yeah.
Scroll back up to it if you would.
Okay.
So okay, The Arrival and At Speed are a 2-volume set that comprise the first adventure, if you will. My publisher refused to publish it all in one big fat book. And so it is a combination of an origin story, how he gets to modern day, and a spy novel with somebody out to get the device that brought him to modern day. Books 3 and 4, The Rendlesham Incident and Endings and Beginnings, are another 2-volume story, again, that my publisher, because I wrote the first 2 books inside 2 months.
Wow.
Because when the idea hit, it was like handling a wide open fire hose. It was coming and it was coming, and I did nothing but eat, sleep, and write. And a lot
Well,
of times,
there's a Sherlock book mixing here.
there's what?
One of your Sherlock books is missing here. Right there.
Oh, that is an anthology that I was in, that I was invited to be in. And it basically, we were required to take one of the canonical stories by Doyle and write a sequel to it.
Okay.
And so I'm in that, but it's not part of this series up here.
Gotcha. Okay.
So once again, and this is about the overlap when another. This one takes place largely in England. The overlap between another alternate realities device and our own, and then a case of spontaneous combustion, which is the 5th book. Some of it is in Colorado and some of it is in London. The 6th book, Fear in the French Quarter, is obviously set in New Orleans. Somewhere in the course of writing this, for one publisher, a different publisher came along and asked me to write a Sherlock Holmes novel that was more of a classic novel, which became Sherlock Holmes and the Mummy's Curse, which is actually, we talked it over, and it's a prequel. It's my version of Holmes from the Displaced Detective series in his original timeline as a young man with Watson, and he gets called by one of his college professors to come to Egypt and help them search for the first pharaoh.
Gotcha.
And that became Sherlock Holmes and the Mummy's Curse. And then Sherlock Sheila's in the 7% Solution is actually a nonfiction book that I did in the course of researching what to expect out of drug use in the Victorian era.
Right. Now I have to ask 2 questions. First, did Kalila have anything to do with the French Quarter one?
I talked to her a little bit about it, yes.
Okay. Because I was like, I know you can't do French Quarters without talking to Kalila. Yeah.
Oh, yes, I did. I did talk to her some.
What are the odds of having an actual person, by the description that we get from Sir Conan Doyle, of a real person like Sherlock Holmes? Is that even possible?
Well, it's said that he based his depiction on Joseph Bell, one of his college professors, and that Bell was capable of surveying a potential patient and telling them all about themselves. And I actually had an ER physician do something similar with me. I came off my horse once, and she basically stood me on my head. So I got a nice ride in the ambulance to the ER on a backboard, and I didn't realize that it's not possible to, if you have to be on a backboard, it's not possible for them to strap you down tight enough. That
No.
was unnerving. So anyway, they carried me in to the ER, and the ER physician promptly starts asking me about my gray horse. I still had hair on my jeans from the horse. So,
It's like, I don't recall you saying you said what kind of horse it was.
yeah. So, yeah. So, yes, it is
It's just a
possible.
matter of being observant then.
It is a matter of being observant and of reasoning from what you observe.
Yeah.
Now, some of the things that Doyle actually had Holmes do probably scientifically isn't as possible as they thought it was at that time. But yeah, that's one of the things that I always liked about Holmes was that a lot of what he was doing made sense to me. And the more I read him, the more I wrote him, the more I have found that I occasionally do it myself. Because it's next to impossible to put yourself into Holmes's mind enough to write him
Yeah.
without learning some of those traits yourself.
I would have to agree with that. I would.
So,
So before we head out, I want to make sure everybody knows there's the web address, Stephanie-Osborn.com. Go get her books because you will not be disappointed. We didn't even touch one that you and I have talked about a lot in the past, which would have been Burnout.
yes, that was my first
And
novel, and
Yep.
it was I started writing it when I was still working in the space program, and it's about a space shuttle disaster that turns out not to have been an accident, and the ensuing investigation and cover up.
which
So,
then becomes even more scary when an actual event like that happens.
yeah, because I basically, except for the fact that my fictional scenario is sabotage, I predicted what happened to the Columbia when it went down
Yeah.
with a friend of
Which
mine on board.
Yeah, which I actually have pictures of me and my family standing in front of that space shuttle. Or no, the Challenger. I'm sorry, we were standing in front of the Challenger, not the Columbia. I got to get those.
And I had, and
They start with a C.
yeah, yeah. Um, I wound up, I used Challenger as my model for when I first started writing Burnout.
Right.
And so that was kind of interesting. And then I had just sent it off to my writing mentor. I was his protege, Travis Taylor. Um, when the accident happened, and I was like, Travis, I think I'm going to trash this thing. He's like, don't you dare. So yeah, and he talked me out of it. So I wound up when I put it aside for a while because I needed some emotional distance. But when the reports started to come out, I got those and I read them. And then I said, okay, what have I got to do to make it, everything look realistic? And I didn't have to do a thing.
That's wild.
So
That's something. Well, Stephanie,
go ahead.
I don't want to cut us short, but I didn't want to take too long of your time because I know you're a busy woman. Annie's computer is gonna catch fire any minute now.
Well, yeah, I need a new computer. I say that every week.
Yep, she does. And so I did want to promise you just a perfect amount of time. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
That
I
was
enjoyed it.
absolutely amazing. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Well, thank
And it
you.
helps a lot because a lot of people hear these things with the sun and we have all these questions, but nobody quite knows what to believe or what to say. And so we're just like, but having somebody who can help us helps.
Let me say, with regard to the idea of a giant solar event, it's not out of the realm of possibility, but those types of events are extremely rare. And our people in charge know about them, and they're
Awesome.
doing their best to prepare. So
I like it. Best way to close on that. And then, Miss Annie, who do we
Yes.
have next week?
We have Joseph Grimm next week and his lovely wife.
So you guys don't want to miss out on that. We're going to have another awesome show. And then guess what? We have another guest, which has been on in the past, following up the week after that. But this one has more evidence of, well, let's just say some haunted items. We'll call it as that. It makes her creep out. So that's the best part about the whole thing. I just like watching her squirm.
Don't do creep out stuff when I'm on the show, because I'm in the house. It's just me and the cat now, and
yeah, I get it. I understand that.
Yeah,
I don't watch any horror movies. I don't look at anything if it's too scary before I go to bed.
Oh, it doesn't help when you're just right to falling asleep and the cat jumps up on your feet.
Yeah, well, I usually have nightmares and fall out of bed, so I'm not doing that. And break a hip or something.
Right? That would be my luck. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it was wonderful having everyone here. Miss Stephanie, Annie.
Thank you, Miss Stephanie.
Thank y'all for having me.
We'll see y'all
Have a good evening.
next week.
Yep.